Frank Corrado is a former Vancouver Canuck and TSN hockey analyst. You know he's hungry as well. Frank, new season of
Yeah, no, I've worked up quite a few Uber Eats bills over the years.
Yes, so have we, especially on game nights where it's like, oh, puck drops in 15 minutes.
I don't want to make
cooked dinner yet.
No.
Time to get some Uber Eats.
Yeah.
Braeden Cootes and Jonathan Lekramaki made this club. Frank, what do you make of that?
I mean, listen, it goes to show you, there was opportunities there because you do have some Hoaglanders not available, so you do have a spot available. It also goes to show you that for a young kid in Cootes, if you can, I don't know, like if you can apply yourself, but everyone tries to apply themselves in training camp. Like if you can assert yourself in a way so that the coach can look at you and say, you know what, like I actually need this guy, or I need something like this, and he can provide it for me, then you've obviously done well. So listen, he's not the biggest guy for sure, but he had a good training camp. He moved his feet, like he did a lot of the stuff that you want your young guy to be able to do, and now he gets rewarded. And Lekramaki, like, this has been something that he should be arriving, right? Like he should be taking this next step as far as like making the team and now trying to have an impact and trying to cement yourself. Like what's your long-term outlook on the team? So, it's one step of, I think, a few more for Lekramaki. And we'll see, like, we'll see how it goes. Like that's where we're at now. We're okay. That's great. Guys have made the teams, and, everyone's going through it with submitting their 23-man rosters. Like, let's see where you're at in a couple months when the season really gets going and the games kind of are fast and furious.
If you're going to have Cootes in the lineup, do you feel like you have to play him? Like 8 minutes for his development is certainly not helpful, but maybe the coach only feels like he needs him for 8 minutes. What do you think the organization agrees upon for his usage if they're going to keep him on this roster?
I know that's always going to be the interesting question. And do you send him back? How long do you keep him? Like 8 minutes a night all season long is, I can tell you right now, like that's not going to be good for his development. There's just no way you can even justify that. So he's going to have to carve out some kind of role. I guess the reason why, you would think he gets the opportunity is they're kind of thin. They're thin down the middle of the ice, so that gives you a chance to get your foot in the door. It just, I think we've kind of been, maybe the Canucks haven't been down this road, but around the league, there's teams that have been down this road. Like Philly kind of had Luchenko around for a bit last year, and eventually they sent him back to Guelph. Shane Wright was a centerman in Seattle who did the whole, okay, we're going to keep you around, then we're going to eventually send you back and slow play it. I guess the template kind of tells you that as time goes on, ice time for a player like that tends to shrink up, and eventually the decision gets made, but you don't have to make that decision just quite yet. You are afforded the luxury of seeing how it goes, and what the kind of the outlook for ice time is going to look like. But I mean, there's no possible justification for keeping a guy, that young on your roster so he could play 8 minutes a night all season long. We just have to see, like, what does that look like? Remember when Bo came up?
Yep.
Right. Like Bo made it. It was his draft +2 year, and he made it. Right. So he didn't make it the first year, made it the second year. He could have gone back to junior. Bo played like a real role on the team. Like, it wasn't what he was doing when he was the captain, but he played and wasn't really sheltered. So
more like 12-13 sort of thing, which starts to get pretty reasonable. Yeah.
You got it. Like, that's where he's going to have to be if he wants to stick around all season long. But he's also trying to do it a year earlier than Bo did it way back then.
You're hoping for an Elias Pettersson bounce back from ineffectiveness for the last year and a half, a Thatcher Demko bounce back from injury. You're hoping Filipino can be a second-line center. You need Atu Ratu to eventually be a third-line center. Plus, you have some other young players who you are relying on to some degree in this lineup. How daunted are you by all the question marks about this Vancouver Canucks team heading into the season, Frank?
The same way, Matt, you can be daunted by all the question marks. You can also be optimistic by what if all these things go well. Like, I really think that the two, it's right down the middle, and it can go either way. when the games play out, we'll see which one kind of takes shape. But like you could look at that and say Elias Pettersson is actually an 85, 90 point player in waiting and didn't have it last year. You could look at it and say Thatcher Demko is actually like a Vezina caliber goaltender in waiting. And Philip Hedl is, if he stays healthy, which is just a massive, massive question mark, he's a good player. He's a crafty player. He's going to provide. I truly believe that. Like all these things you can take the positive side of it as well and say no one's not that no one's accounting for it, but when people project what the Canucks are going to be, they're kind of thinking they're going to be closer to what they were last year. And if all those things go well, they're not what they were last year. They're a much better team than what they were last year. So while it's daunting to kind of look at it that way, I kind of think there's also like an optimist view of things. And to be fair, right? Like if I just took any other team, for example, and I said, I do Montreal games, right? I do 30 Montreal games in the booth. Like if I just said, well, what if Nick Suzuki's hurt this year? Guess what? Montreal's not making the playoffs, right? What if Sam Montembeault, is hurt? Like not making it. Like it's just you can kind of go around the league and you can pluck those types of players and it'll sink their season. So the Canucks are not the only team in that boat. It's just there's been recently that has happened for the Canucks, and that's where I think people get a little spooked by it.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about Pacific Division in a second, and Frank will give us his Canucks prediction, as all our guests are this week. But Frank, in terms of routes to victory on a nightly basis for the Vancouver Canucks, and Blake and I have kicked this around all summer. Okay, you've got two strong goaltenders and what looks like six pretty good defensemen. Sure enough, the 2-1, 3-2 low-scoring, low-event win, I think that's a pathway that's going to be available to them. But Blake and I had also mentioned a couple of times during the summer, and you tell us because you're the X's and O's guy, but could it be, Frank, that you're just so good, so stout defensively, rarely giving up your own blue line and your own zone to teams with possession? Is there a possibility that being so good defensively could lead to more goals the other way, and thus you are able to win the higher scoring games from time to time?
All these defensemen can move the puck, so that's sort of the logic.
They can
there.
all move the puck. Like I get what you're saying, and you're totally not wrong about that. But the way, like if teams want to play this like defending up ice strategy, right, where you're going to be super aggressive on pinches and at the offensive blue line and holding the red line to make sure that teams either have to dump the puck or they turn it over, like that requires a lot of energy. It requires like a lot of energy to play that kind of upbeat style, and if you don't have it, like if you don't have the energy on a night, then you're susceptible to the 2-on-1s and the 3-on-2s. And all of a sudden, in theory, you were playing this like really stout defensive way. But if you're just a half step behind, it becomes leaky really quickly. And all of a sudden you're back to, we're relying on Thatcher Demko to steal us games again. Which I don't think it's wrong to play that way, but I don't know if it's a bulletproof strategy. But what do? You're better off trying to play that way than saying we're going to be super conservative, we're going to pack the house, and it's going to be a shooting gallery in front of us, and we're going to try and block a million shots, because you know what you have then? Not the puck. Like so I'd rather see them try and push the battles up the ice, see if you can force turnovers, and if you're playing that way, I think you have more of a conceivable chance of having the puck and creating more offense, rather than saying, we're going to be so good in our defensive zone, D-zone coverage. Great. Spend 45 seconds in D-zone coverage. Did you ever come up with the puck? Did you ever transition it quickly? Did you ever force them into a turnover that turns into an odd man rush? So I think that's if for them to achieve what you're talking about, Matt, I think it has to be like a somewhat of an aggressive up the ice mindset in order for that to be the case.
Who's the team that, I come up with, the 15-year-old Predators is like the last defensive goaltender strong team that didn't really have marquee offense. Has there been a more recent example of that, of a team with muted offense, but just so good defensively and in goal that, they're a competitive final eight kind of team?
Actually it's a good question. Like if I just skim through the standings from last year quickly, because I'm drawing a blank like right off the top of my head.
I've gone through it. I can't really think of anybody.
Well, there was the pandemic year when the Habs made it to the Cup final. I don't know if anybody wants to. I mean, that team was not chock-a-block with great offense, but
are the Carolinas full of like world beaters offensively? Like they just mow teams over.
No, but they got a lot of 7 out of 10s. You know, they kind of flood you with 7 out of 10 kind of guys rather than.
They don't have like, you know, they don't have 2 100-point players. They don't have like they don't have the Kucherov point Gensel line, or, you know, if Winnipeg, the Scheifele Connor Velarde line like that was last year, or the Montreal Caulfield line. Like they're really into what they do well defensively, and you know, obviously their goaltending is good, not great, but that's a team that like it's very glaring if someone goes there and they don't necessarily play that way. So that's one that sticks out.
2019 Blues, not exactly chock-a-block with gifted offensive players. I mean, Ryan O'Reilly, fantastic player, but not your quintessential offensive 1C for a cup.
No, but
a cup champion.
With saying that, like everyone was slotted on that Blues team really well, because here in where I live in Toronto, it was always Tyler Bozak can't be your first line center. But if Tyler Bozak is your third line center, you have a pretty damn good team. And where was he in St. Louis? He was your third line center. So in saying that, yeah, you didn't have the super elites maybe, but you just had everyone slotted where they were supposed to be.
What do you make of this Pacific Division, Frank? Because the more I look at the West and I sort of chop up the playoff spots, the more I wonder whether Vancouver might be in closer grasp of third place in the Pacific than a wild card, given what the Central looks like. But you tell me, do you think the Pacific will be a competitive division this year?
I think it's a 2-tier division this year. I think you have your top 4, and the Canucks would be included in that, and then your bottom 4. And the team in the bottom 4 that I likely would say has like the chance of making a jump this year is Anaheim, but I still think they're kind of just raw. Like they're young and they're gonna be figuring things out still. So I kind of think it's the top 4 and the bottom 4 in the Pacific, and it's going to be really competitive in the Central between, you know, we kind of the big 3: Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, but you know, Minnesota's not going anywhere quietly. They've got really good goaltending. They've got good bones defensively. If Kaprizov's healthy all year, like that's a huge difference maker. You know, St. Louis is they were really good in the second half last year. I think there's a lot of people that kind of think that might be the team on the outside looking in, and maybe Utah. Like Utah has something going that, you know, with Peterka being added there, and I think there's a realistic chance that it's 5 out of the Central and 3 out of the Pacific, but the Canucks should be like, they should be right in that mix of teams with like St. Louis, Minnesota, and Utah kind of all fighting for that final, you know, there's the final 2 wild card spots, let's say.
Did you learn anything in the preseason about anybody in the West in particular, perhaps, that you didn't think you knew? Like, has your mind changed at all based on what you've seen in the last couple of weeks?
Not really. I just think it's such a mixed bag what you see in these games. Like, you know, just from the whole day to day of it, traveling the day of, you got some AHL guys filtered in. You had some games where it was junior guys filtered in. It's hard to get a read on what these teams are. I think the one thing I guess you can say is, like, if teams are making these like unforced errors and there's all of a sudden like these huge gaffes and mistakes, then it starts to raise a little bit of a question mark. Like I saw that a little bit on the East Coast with Ottawa. Ottawa had a really bad preseason until they played their final game, and it was, oh, they're fine, right? So like using that example, teams that didn't necessarily look great in the preseason are going to show up night one and they might look great. And you're like, it's all okay. But the first couple weeks, you know, not night one, but the first couple weeks should give us a pretty good indicator on where teams are at with their details. And if they're as sharp as they want to be, and the games are going to come pretty quickly because of the condensed season.
Do you believe in the Edmonton Oilers still? With the
$12.5 million Connor
the guy
Dave,
settling for
McDavid
Frank Corrado money
exactly
to finish his career here.
Well, let's just say this, and I got some mixed reviews to my tweet that I sent out, which was joking, of course, but Connor McDavid should win the King Clancy Award for contributions to his community, considering how much money he left on the table. He's no longer he's a hockey player. He's a philanthropist. For what he's done for the
Messier Award for leadership too. By taking
Frank.
less money, he can win all those things.
How much money he left on the table? He basically just said, "Keep it as is. I'll live in a flat cap world for a couple more years, even though everyone else is going to reap the rewards of a skyrocketing cap." And has there ever been more pressure on a general manager and
That's
president
a great point.
to figure it out? He's basically said, I'll do my part and then some. It's on you guys to now figure out. And with that being said, the Oilers are still a really good team. They're in that category of 7 or 8 teams that you could possibly see winning a Stanley Cup, but don't mess it up, right? Don't spend that money poorly now. Don't sign bad contracts. And if there was ever a 3-year window to win in ever, this is it. This is, you can see it now. The finish line it's right there. It's 3 years away because he's not giving you this chance again. So we'll see, we'll see if they get back there. They're gonna have a good regular season. They probably will win the Pacific, especially if they don't have a poor start like they've done the last couple of years. But that is one of the greatest discounts that I can ever imagine.
That'll be 13 years of service, though, for McDavid and Edmonton. That seems like enough. It seems like if they haven't been able to surround him in 13 years, that'll be enough.
Yeah.
Great take, Frank. And Frank's tweet is sponsored by the National Hockey League's Players Association. Okay, buddy, we've come to brass tacks. I need your Canucks prediction points and where they will finish vis-a-vis the division or conference.
All right, buddy. I got 4th in the Pacific, and that is going to be at 97 points. And I'm going to say they make a wild card spot with that 97 points. What do you think?
Right.
What do you think?
That's right in the territory, roughly, with how some others have picked. 4th, is that behind Los Angeles?
That is just behind Los Angeles. Okay. I would say Edmonton, Vegas, LA, Vancouver.
If I said to you the Kings are going to have a mighty drop-off, could you buy that?
Yeah, I could buy that. But they're still a good team. It's also Kopitar's last year, so I think there's going to be a lot of willingness and initiative on the team to really not let it be a downer of a year with that happening.
Yep. I hear you there. He's also in his 20th season, and I do wonder whether there's a drop-off. Personally, they have a lot. They are counting on Byfield in a big, big way, right? It is go time.
Their center's beyond that.
Byfield. Well, Deneau's a good player, but
not what he used to be.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. All gets going tonight. Canucks on Thursday. We look forward to next week already. Thanks, Frank.
Okay, boys. Enjoy the games.